Hey y'all, today we are doing The Swiss Family Robinson by Joanne Wise. We are on chapter 2, A Desolate Island. We rose up betimes, for sleep weighs lightly on the hopeful as well as the anxious. After kneeling together in prayer, "Now, my beloved ones," said I, "with God's help, we are about to effect our escape. Let the poor animals we must leave behind be well fed, and put plenty of fodder within their reach. In a few days we may be able to return and save them likewise. After that, collect everything you can think of which may be of use to us." The boys joyfully obeyed me, and from the large quantity of stores they got together, I selected canvas to make a tent, a chest of carpenter's tools, guns, pistols, powder, shot, and bullets, rods, and fishing tackle, an iron pot, a case of portable soup, and another of biscuit. These useful articles, of course, took the place of the ballast I had hastily thrown in the day before. With a hearty prayer for God's blessing, we now began to take our seats, each in his tub. Just then we heard the cocks begin to crow, as though to reproach us for deserting them. "Why should not the fowls go with us?" exclaimed I. "If we find no food for them, they can be food for us," exclaimed I. 10 hens and a couple of cocks were accordingly placed in one of the tubs, and secured with some wire netting over them. The ducks and geese were set at liberty, and took to the water at once, while the pigeons, rejoicing to find themselves on the wing, swiftly made for the shore. My wife, who managed all this for me, kept us waiting for her some little time, and came at last with a bag as big as a pillow in her arms. "This is my contribution," said she, throwing a bag to little Franz, to be, as I thought, a cushion for him to sit upon. All being ready, we cast off and moved away from the wreck. My good, brave wife sat in the first compartment of the boat. Next to her was Franz, a pretty little boy, nearly 8 years old. Then came Fritz, a handsome, spirited young fellow of 15. The 2 center tubs contained the valuable cargo. Then came our bold, thoughtless Jack. Next to him Ernst, my second son, intelligent, well-formed, and rather indolent. I myself, the anxious, loving father, stood in the stern, endeavoring to guide the raft with its precious burden to a safe landing place. The elder boys took the oars. Everyone wore a float belt, and had something useful close to him in case of being thrown into the water. The tide was flowing, which was a great help for the young oarsmen. We emerged from the wreck and glided into the open sea. All eyes were strained to get a full view of the land, and the boys pulled with a will. But for some time we made no progress, as the boat kept turning round and round, until I hit upon the right way to steer it, after which we merrily made for the shore. We had left the 2 dogs, Turk and Juno, on the wreck, as being both large mastiffs, we did not care to have their additional weight on board our craft. But when they saw us apparently deserting them, they set up a piteous howl and sprang into the sea. I was sorry to see this, for the distance to the land was so great that I scarcely expected them to be able to accomplish it. They followed us, however, and occasionally resting their forepaws on the outriggers, kept up with us well. Jack was inclined to deny them this, their only chance of safety. "Stop," said I. "That would be unkind as well as foolish. Remember, the merciful man regardeth the life of his beast." Our passage, with Tedious, was safe, but the nearer we approached the shore, the less inviting it appeared. The barren rocks seemed to threaten us with misery and want. Many casks, boxes, and bales of goods floated on the water around us. Fritz and I managed to secure a couple of hogsheads so as to tow them alongside. With a prospect of famine before us, it was desirable to lay hold of anything likely to contain provisions. By and by, we began to perceive that, between and beyond the cliffs, green grass and trees were discernible. Fritz could distinguish many tall palms, and Ernst hoped they would prove to be coconut trees, and enjoyed the thoughts of drinking the refreshing milk. "I'm very sorry. I never thought of bringing away the captain's telescope," said I. "Oh, look here, father," cried Jack, drawing a little spyglass joyfully out of his pocket. By the means of this glass, I made out at some distance to the left the coast was much more inviting. A strong current, however, carried us directly toward the frowning rocks. But I presently observed an opening, where the stream flowed into the sea, and saw that our geese and ducks were swimming toward this place. I steered after them into the creek, and found ourselves in a small bay or inlet where the water was perfectly smooth and of moderate depth. The ground sloped gently upward from the low banks to the cliffs, which were retired inland, leaving a small plain on which it was easy for us to land. Everyone sprang gladly out of the boat but little Franz, who, lying packed in his tub like a potted shrimp, had to be lifted out by his mother. The dogs had scrambled on shore before us, and received us with loud barking and the wildest demonstrations of delight. The geese and ducks kept up the incessant din, added to which was the screaming and croaking of flamingos and penguins, whose dominion we were invading. The noise was deafening, but far from unwelcome to me, as I thought of the good dinners the birds might furnish. As soon as we could gather our children around us on dry land, we knelt to offer thanks and praise to our merciful escape, and with full hearts we commended ourselves to God's good keeping for the time to come. All hands then briskly fell to the work of unloading, and oh, how rich we felt ourselves as we did so. The poultry we left at liberty to forage for themselves, and set about to finding a suitable place to erect a tent in which to pass the night. This we speedily did, thrusting a long spar into the hole of the rock, and supporting the other end by a pole firmly planted in the ground. We favored a framework over which we stretched the sailcloth we had brought. Besides fastening this down with pegs, we placed our heavy chest in boxes on the border of the canvas and arranged hooks so as to be able to close up the entrance during the night. When this was accomplished, the boys ran to collect moss and grass to spread in the tent for our beds, while I arranged the fireplace with some large flat stones near the brook which flowed close by. Dry twigs and seaweed were soon in a blaze on the hearth. I filled the iron pot with water, and giving my wife several cakes of portable soup, she established herself as our cook, with little Franz to help her. He, thinking his mother was melting some glue for carpenting, was eager to know what Papa was going to make next. "This is going to be soup for your dinner, my child. Do you think these cakes look like glue?" "Yes, indeed I do," replied Franz, "and I should not much like to taste glue soup. Don't you want some beef or mutton, Mama?" "Where can I get it, dear?" she said. "We are a long way from a butcher's shop, but these cakes are made of the juice of good meat, boiled till it becomes a strong, stiff jelly. People take them when they go to sea, because on a long voyage they can only have salt meat, which will not make nice soup." Fritz, meanwhile, leaving a loaded gun with me, took another himself and went along the rough coast to see what lay beyond. The stream, this fatiguing sort of walk, not suiting Ernest's fancy, he sauntered down to the beach, and Jack scrambled among the rocks searching for shellfish. I was anxious to land the 2 casks which were floating alongside our boat, But on attempting to do so, I found that I could not get them up the bank on which we had landed, and was therefore obliged to look for a more convenient spot. As I did so, I was startled by hearing Jack shouting for help, as though in great danger. He was at some distance, and I hurried toward him with a hatchet in my hand. The little fellow stood screaming in a deep pool, and as I approached, I saw that a huge lobster had caught his leg in its powerful claw. Poor Jack was in a terrible fright. Kick as he would, his enemy still clung on. I waded into the water, and seizing the lobster firmly by the back, managed to make it loosen its hold, and we brought it safe to land. Jack, having speedily recovered his spirits, and anxious to take such a prize to his mother, caught the lobster in both hands, but instantly received such a severe blow from its tail that he flung it down, and passionately hit the creature with a large stone. This display of temper worried me. "You're acting in a very childish way, my son," said I. "Never strike an enemy in a revengeful spirit." There's a couple of cuts in this book. Once more, lifting the lobster, Jack ran triumphantly toward the tent. Mother, a lobster! Ernest, look here! Franz, mind, he'll bite you. Where's Fritz?" All came crowding around Jack and his prize, wondering at its unusual size, and Ernst wanted his mother to make lobster soup directly, by adding it to what she was now boiling. She, however, begged to decline making any such experiment, and said she preferred cooking one dish at a time. Having remarked that the scene of Jack's adventure afforded a convenient place for getting my casks on shore, I returned and succeeded in drawing them up on the beach, where I sat them on the end, and for the present left them. On my return, I resumed the subject of Jack's lobster, and told him he should have the offending claw all to himself when it was ready to be eaten, congratulating him on being the first to discover anything useful. As to that, Ernst said, I found something good to eat as well as Jack, only I could not get them without wetting my feet. "Pooh!" cried Jack. I know what he saw. Nothing but some nasty mussels. I saw them too. Who wants to eat trash like that? Lobster for me. I believe them to be oysters, not mussels, returned Ernst calmly. Be good enough, my philosophical young friend, to fetch a few specimens of these oysters in time for our next meal, said I. We must all exert ourselves, Ernst, for the common good, and pray never let me hear you object to wetting your feet. See how quickly the sun has dried Jack and me? I can bring some salt at the same time, said Ernst. I remarked a good deal lying in the crevices on the rocks. It tasted very pure and good, and I concluded it was produced by the evaporation of seawater in the sun. Extremely probable, learned sir, cried I. But if you had brought a bagful of this good salt, instead of merely speculating so profoundly on the subject, it would have been more to the purpose. Run and fetch some directly. It proved to be salt, sure enough, although so impure that it seemed useless, till my wife dissolved it and strained it, when it became fit to put in the soup. Why not use the seawater itself? Asked Jack. Because, said Ernst, it is not only salt, but bitter too. Just try it. Now, said my wife, tasting the soup with a stick with which she had been stirring it, dinner is ready. But where can Fritz be? She continued a little anxiously. How are we to eat our soup? When does he come? I asked. We have neither plates nor spoons, and we can scarcely lift the boiling pot to our mouths. We are in an uncomfortable position, as we, the fox to whom the stork served up a dinner in a jug with a long neck. Oh, for a few coconut shells, said Ernst. Oh, for half a dozen plates and as many silver spoons, rejoined I, smiling. Really, though, oyster shells would do, said he, after a moment's thought. True. That's an idea worth having. Off with you, my boys. Get the oysters and clean out a few shells. What, though, our spoons have no handles, and we do burn our fingers a little in the bailing the soup out. Jack was away and up to his knees in the water in a moment. Detaching the oysters, Ernst followed more leisurely, and still unwilling to get his feet wet, stood by the margin of the pool and gathered in his handkerchief the oysters his brother threw him. As he thus stood, he picked up and pocketed a large mussel shell for his own use. As they returned with a good supply, he heard a shout from Fritz in the distance. We returned it joyfully, and he presently appeared before us, his hands behind his back, and a look of disappointment upon his countenance. Unsuccessful, said he. Really? Replied I. Never mind, boy. Better luck next time. Oh, Fritz, exclaimed his brothers, who had looked behind him. A sucking pig. A little sucking pig. Where did you get it? How did you shoot it? Do let us see it. Fritz, then, with sparkling eyes, exhibited his prize. I am glad to see the result of your prowess, my boy, said I, but I cannot approve of deceit, even as a joke. Stick to the truth in jest and earnest. Fritz then told us how he had been to the other side of the stream. So different from this, he said. It is really a beautiful country, and the shore, which runs down to the sea in a gentle slope, is covered with all sorts of useful things from the wreck. Do let us go and collect them. And, Father, why should we not return to the wreck and bring off some of the animals? Just think of what value the cow would be to us, and what a pity it would be to lose her. Let us get her on shore, and we will move over the stream, where she will have good pasturage, and we shall be in the shade instead on this desert. And, Father, I do wish— Stop, my boy, cried I. All will be done in good time. Tomorrow and the day after I will bring work of their own. And tell me, did you see no traces of our shipmates? Not a sign of them, either on land or sea, living or dead, he replied. But the sucking pig, said Jack, where did you get it? It was one of several, said Fritz, which I found on the shore. Most curious animals they are. They hopped rather than walked, and every now and then would squat down on their legs and rub their snouts with their forepaws. Had not I been afraid of losing them all, I would have tried to catch one alive. They seemed so tame. Meanwhile, Ernst had been carefully examining the animal in question. This is no pig, he said, except for its bristly skin. It does not look like one. See, its teeth are not like those of a pig, but rather those of a squirrel, in fact, he continued, looking at Fritz. Your sucking pig is an agouti. Dear me, said Fritz, listen to the great professor lecturing. He is going to prove that a pig is not a pig. You need not be so quick to laugh at your brother, said I in my turn. He is quite right. I, too, know the agouti, and by descriptions and pictures, there is little doubt that this is a specimen. The little animal is a native of North America, where it makes its nest under the roots of trees and lives upon fruit. But Ernst, the agouti, not only looks something like a pig, but most decidedly grunts like a little porker. While we were thus talking, Jack had been vainly endeavoring to open an oyster with his large knife. Here is a simpler way, said I. Placing an oyster on the fire, it immediately opened. Now, I continued, who will try this delicacy? All at first hesitated to partake of them. So unattractive did they appear. Jack, however, tightly closing his eyes and making a face as though about to take medicine, gulped one down. We followed his example, one after the other, each doing so rather to provide himself with a spoon than with any of cultivating of taste for oysters. Our spoons were now ready, and gathering round the pot, we dipped them in, not, however, without sundry scalding fingers. Ernst then drew from his pocket a large shell he had procured for his own use, and scooping up a good quantity of soup, he put it down to cool, smiling at his own foresight. "Prudence should be exercised for others," I remarked. "Your cool soup will do capitally for the dogs, my boy. Take it to them, and then come and eat it like the rest of us." Ernst winced at this, but silently taking up his shell, he placed it on the ground before the hungry dogs, who lapped up its contents in a moment. He then returned, and we all went merrily on with our dinner. While we were thus busily employed, we suddenly discovered that our dogs, not satisfied with their mouthful of soup, had espied the agouti and were rapidly devouring it. Fritz, seizing his gun, flew to rescue it from their hungry jaws before I could prevent him, struck one of them with such force that his gun was bent. The poor beasts ran off howling, followed by a shower of stones from Fritz, who shouted and yelled at them so fiercely that his mother was actually terrified. I followed him, and as soon as he would listen to me, represented to him how despicable as well as wicked was such an outbreak of temper. "For," said I, "you have hurt, if not actually wounded, the dogs. You have distressed and terrified your mother, and you have spoiled your gun." Though Fritz's passion was easily aroused, it never lasted long, and speedily recovering himself immediately, he entreated his mother's pardon and expressed his sorrow for his fault. By this time, the sun was sinking beneath the horizon, and the poultry, which had been straying on some little distance, gathered round us, and began to pick up the crumbs of biscuit which had fallen during our repast. My wife hereupon drew from her mysterious bag some handful of oats, peas, and other grain, and with them began to feed the poultry. She, at the same time, showed me several other seeds of various vegetables. "That was indeed thoughtful," said I. "But pray be careful of what will be such value to us. We can bring plenty of damaged biscuits from the wreck, which, though of no use as food for us, will suit the fowls very well indeed." The pigeons now flew up to crevices in the rocks. The fowls perched themselves upon our tent pole, and the ducks and geese waddled off, cackling and quacking, to a marshy margin of the river. We too were ready for repose, and having loaded our guns and offered up our prayers to God, thanking him for his many mercies to us, we commended ourselves to his protecting care, and as the last ray of light departed, closed our tent and lay down to rest. The children remarked the suddenness of nightfall, for indeed there had been little or no twilight. This convinced me that we must not be far from the equator, for twilight results from the refraction of the sun's rays. The more obliquely these rays fall, the farther does the partial light extend, while the more perpendicular they strike the earth, the longer do they continue their undiminished force, until when the sun sinks, they totally disappear, thus producing sudden darkness. So it looks like they've all made it ashore. They've been able to bring the birds with them and bring the dogs by way of them swimming to shore. And it looks like kind of everyone's made it. They've been able to have a meal now and rest up and clean up and get ready for what the next day brings. Hopefully you guys will tune in next time for Chapter 3. Thank you very much, and y'all have a wonderful and blessed day.